Sarah Chen stood before the Galactic Council, her ceremonial dress uniform crisp despite the 10-hour wait they'd forced upon her. The council chamber, designed to intimidate with its towering crystalline spires and floating platforms, stretched into the artificial twilight above. 300 representatives from the galaxy's civilized species looked down at her from their elevated positions, their bioluminescent markings and cybernetic enhancements glittering like cruel stars. "The council has reached its decision," High Speaker Vorax announced, his translucent membranes flickering with disdain. After careful deliberation regarding humanity's continued violations of council guidelines on technological development, colonial expansion, and cultural integration, we find Earth unfit for continued membership. Chen's heartbeat remained steady, her neural implant regulating her biological responses. The same implant they'd called barbaric self-modification during last month's technology review. Their hypocrisy would have been amusing if it hadn't been so calculated. Furthermore, Vorax continued, his secondary voice sacs vibrating with pleasure, humanity's recent attempts to establish diplomatic relations with non-council species demonstrates a fundamental inability to understand galactic civilization's proper order. That last bit nearly cracked her composure. They were referring to the Crystalline Collective, a silicon-based species humanity had encountered in the Orion Arm. The Council had deemed them incompatible with civilized discourse centuries ago. Chen had found them fascinating, their crystalline resonant speech carrying nuances that standard Council linguistics couldn't begin to capture. Would the representative from Earth care to make a final statement? The question came from Ambassador Angsthavel of the Arcturians, one of the few council members who occasionally showed humanity genuine respect. Their front-facing eyes held something that might have been sympathy. Chen straightened, allowing herself to feel the weight of the moment. In her pocket, her fingers brushed against the quantum-encrypted communicator that would send humanity down one of two very different paths. Everything hinged on the Council's next response. "Honored Council," she began, her voice carrying the same diplomatic lilt she'd perfected over 15 years of service. "Humanity accepts that we may not meet the Council's standards for civilization. We are young, by your measure, aggressive, by your definitions, unable to respect proper order as you see it." She paused, letting each word land like a pebble in still water. "Therefore, we will withdraw from Council space entirely." A ripple of satisfaction passed through the chamber. Several members activated their recording organs, eager to document humanity's submission. But Chen wasn't finished. "We will, of course, be taking our innovations with us, including the quantum fold drive designs that power 30% of Council merchant vessels, the neural interface medical technologies currently used in 60% of Council medical facilities, and most importantly, the stabilized wormhole generators that make this very station possible." The chamber erupted. Vorax's membranes turned a sickly gray. "You cannot. Those technologies were developed under Council supervision. They are Council property." Chen smiled, and this time she let them see it. "Actually, according to Council Law 247B, which you enacted specifically to restrict human innovation, any species expelled from the Council retains sole rights to their technological contributions. We simply have to cease sharing them. Effective immediately." The chaos that followed was everything she'd hoped for. Some members immediately called for her arrest. Others demanded immediate negotiation. A few of the younger races simply sat in stunned silence, perhaps realizing for the first time just how much their mighty Council relied on human innovation. Chen turned and walked toward the chamber's exit, her steps measured and unhurried. As the doors began to close behind her, she drew out the quantum communicator and pressed a single key. In her pocket, a second device vibrated once, acknowledgement from Fleet Command that Operation Phoenix was now active. Across human space, carefully hidden ships were powering up. Research stations were beginning data purges, and colonization vessels, prepared in secret for this very moment, were breaking orbit. The Council thought they were caging humanity. Instead, they'd just removed the last chains holding humanity back. As Chen walked to her waiting shuttle, she allowed herself a genuine smile. The real work was about to begin. Operation Phoenix unfolded like a lethal dance, coordinated across 12 star systems with precision that would have made the Council choke on their pronouncements of human primitiveness. Deep within the methane storms of Neptune, the massive shipyards of Triton Base awakened. Quantum-folded space rippled as hidden doors opened in reality itself, revealing armadas that had never appeared on Council sensors. Admiral James Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the ECS Hyperion, watching holographic displays track the simultaneous launch of over 5,000 vessels. His fingers traced the scars on his neck, remnants of the neural interface the Council had deemed too dangerous for widespread use. The same interface now letting him process the complex launch sequence with inhuman speed. "Status report," he commanded, his augmented voice carrying to every ship in the fleet. "Exodus Group Alpha, launching from Sol system. All ships reporting green," came the first response, followed by a cascade of similar reports from the other groups. The Council had always wondered why humans insisted on maintaining bases in such hostile environments. Gas giants, asteroid belts, and volatile volcanic moons. They'd never guessed these were just the visible sights. Lieutenant Sarah Wong's hands flew over her console, her own neural interface glowing softly beneath her skin. "Sir, Council monitoring stations are registering the launches. Their response ships are 8 minutes out." Rodriguez smiled. "Right on schedule. Execute Phase 2. Across the fleet, dimensional drives powered up. Technology the Council had banned after a single failed test centuries ago. Humanity hadn't failed. They'd simply taken the research underground. Now 5,000 ships vanished into pocket dimensions, leaving only quantum echoes for the Council's sensors to chase. "Message from Ambassador Chen," Wong announced. "Operation Phoenix is fully green. She's aboard the New Dawn and ready for a dimensional jump." The New Dawn carried more than just Earth's former ambassador. Its quantum vaults held the seeds of humanity's future, genetic databases of Earth's biosphere, cultural archives, and most importantly, the complete technological database that the Council thought they controlled. Chen had played her part perfectly, keeping the Council's attention focused on her while the real operation unfolded. "Sir," Wang's voice carried an edge of excitement, "we're receiving signals from the Crystalline Collective. They're cheering for us. Their resonant songs are broadcasting across all frequencies." Of course they were. The silicon-based beings had been waiting for this moment too, their crystalline technology perfectly adapted to hide quantum communications from Council detection. They weren't the only ones. Dozens of species deemed unworthy by the Council were about to discover they had allies they never expected. "Council vessels entering weapons range," Tactical reported. "They're demanding our surrender." Rodriguez watched the Council ships approach, elegant, standardized vessels that hadn't changed their design in 1,000 years. They were beautiful, perfect, and hopelessly outmatched. "Send them our response," he ordered. Across every Council communication channel, a simple message played. "Humanity accepts its exile. We will trouble you no more." As the Council ships moved to intercept, the human fleet executed their final jump. 5,000 ships, carrying over 10 million colonists, vanished into dimensions the Council had never dared to explore. On the Hyperion's bridge, Rodriguez watched the last ships disappear. "All ships report successful transition. We're beyond Council space." "Sir," Wong's voice was quiet now, "do you think they realize what they've done?" "The Council." Rodriguez looked at the stellar map, where hundreds of new routes were already being plotted through dimensional space. Routes that would connect the forgotten, the rejected, and the uncivilized species of the galaxy. Routes that would build an empire not through conquest, but through the simple act of offering respect to those the Council had scorned. "They will," he said, feeling the neural interface pulse with possibilities. "But by then, it'll be too late. We're not running away. We're just getting started." The Hyperion's dimensional drive hummed to life, and the flagship of humanity's exodus vanished into spaces between spaces. Behind them, Council ships searched empty space, not realizing they were witnessing not the end of humanity's story, but merely the end of its prologue. The crystalline surface of Rhea 9 sparkled under binary suns, its silicon forests refracting light into cascading rainbows that danced across the hull of the new dawn. Sarah Chen watched through the ship's quantum glass viewport as crystalline beings emerged from their geometric cities, their faceted bodies pulsing with internal light that spoke volumes to those who knew how to listen. "They're singing," Dr. Maya Patel whispered beside her, the linguist's neural interface translating the complex patterns of light and resonance into comprehensible meaning. "They're singing about change, about hope." Chen nodded, adjusting her environmental suit's resonance transmitter. The Council had dismissed the crystalline collective's method of communication as primitive vibrations. It had taken human linguists less than a year to discover it was actually a complex quantum-level exchange of information, far more sophisticated than standard Council protocols. "Ambassador," the ship's AI announced, "the collective's representatives are ready to receive us." "Not Ambassador anymore," Chen corrected, stepping into the airlock. "Just Sarah now." The Council had stripped her of that title, but they'd given her something far more valuable in return: freedom to act without their constraints. The descent to the surface was smooth, their shuttle guided by crystalline navigation beacons that the Council's sensors had never detected. As they landed, Chen saw hundreds of crystalline beings arranged in concentric circles, their bodies humming with welcome songs that made her suit's sensors dance. First contact protocols, drilled into every human diplomat, called for careful distance and sterilization procedures. Chen had read the classified reports about why the Council had really rejected the crystalline collective, not because they were incompatible, but because they couldn't be controlled. She took a calculated risk and stepped out onto the crystal sand without activating her suit's barrier field. The nearest crystalline being, its body a complex lattice of transparent and opaque segments, approached. Light pulsed through its structure in patterns that Dr. Patel's translation software rendered into words. "You risk much by coming here, humans who defy the Council." "We risk more by standing still," Chen replied, her suit transmitting her words in resonance patterns. "The Council believes they've exiled us. We believe they've freed us to seek better allies." The crystalline being's light patterns shifted to what Chen had learned to recognize as amusement. "And you believe we are such allies, we whom the Council deemed too alien for their sensibilities?" "We believe," Chen said, "that the Council's greatest mistake was assuming different meant inferior. Humanity has walked that road before, in our own history. We learned better. Now we offer what the Council never did: partnership, not patronage." The crystalline being's next transmission caused Dr. Patel to gasp. Through her neural interface, Chen saw why. The being was transmitting on quantum levels that shouldn't have been possible, sharing information about technologies the Council had declared theoretically impossible. "We have watched," the being transmitted, "as you humans pushed against the Council's boundaries. We saw how they feared your speed, your adaptability, your willingness to embrace the new. We saw ourselves in you." More crystalline beings moved forward, their bodies linking into complex geometric patterns that made Chen's neural interface burn with incoming data. They were sharing everything: their true capabilities, their hidden achievements, their own secret defiance of Council limitations. "The Council," the first being continued, "believes they have weakened humanity by casting you out. They do not understand that they have created something new, a bridge between the species they fear and the power they refuse to see." Chen felt tears in her eyes as the implications became clear. The crystalline collective hadn't just been waiting for contact. They'd been waiting for this specific moment, preparing for it just as humanity had prepared for exile. "Then," she said, her voice carrying both human speech and crystalline resonance, "shall we show the galaxy what becomes possible when we stop fearing difference and start celebrating it instead. The crystal forests around them erupted in harmonics of agreement, a symphony of light and sound that carried a simple truth. The Council hadn't ended humanity's story. They'd helped write the first line of a much greater one. Marcus Wong stood in his laboratory aboard the research station Prometheus, surrounded by holographic equations that the Council had declared impossible. His neural interface pulsed as it processed data streams from experiments that would have earned him execution in Council space. The station's quantum shields hummed softly, hiding them in a pocket of folded spacetime. "Run it again," he told the AI, watching as crystal hybrid processors simulated particle interactions that shouldn't exist. The results flashed through his neural network, confirming what he'd suspected for months. They lied to us. All of us. For thousands of years. Dr. Elena Santos, her own neural implants glowing faintly beneath dark skin, moved through the holographic display. "The Council's laws of physics," she said, her voice thick with disgust, "were never laws at all. They were limits. Carefully constructed barriers wrapped in scientific dogma. The evidence floated before them in quantum-locked displays. The Council's universal constants weren't constant at all. They were artificial constraints, enforced through hidden networks of suppression technology scattered across Council space. Technology that humanity had just slipped beyond. Look at this." Marcus highlighted a section of data, sharing it directly through their neural link. Their so-called maximum efficiency for quantum drives. It's not a natural limit. It's the point where their suppression field kicks in. They'd been hobbling everyone's technology, making their own superior tech seem like the peak of possibility. Elena's hands danced through the air, manipulating the simulation. The crystalline collective's quantum resonance technology makes sense now. Their entire biology operates on frequencies the Council's suppression field can't touch. That's why they were labeled incompatible. They couldn't be controlled. A soft chime announced another arrival. Dr. Kenzo Tanaka, the team's xenobiologist, entered with an expression of barely contained excitement. "You need to see this," he said, broadcasting data through their shared neural network. "I've been analyzing the genetic records the Council kept of failed species. The patterns, they're not random mutations. They're deliberate modifications." The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. "They'd been engineering failure," he whispered, "making sure every new species either fits their pattern or fails to advance." Elena's hands clenched. "Until us. Until humans came along with our barbaric neural interfaces and our dangerous drive to innovate. We didn't just break their rules. We broke their entire system of control." The laboratory's AI interrupted with urgent data. Another simulation had finished, this one combining human neural interface technology with crystalline quantum resonance patterns. The results defied everything the Council had claimed was possible. "Send this to Fleet Command," Marcus ordered, his heart racing. "Priority transmission to Sarah Chen and the Crystalline Collective. They need to see this immediately." The data streamed out through channels the Council couldn't detect, carrying with it the keys to unlocking potential they had suppressed for millennia. Humanity hadn't just escaped their cage. They'd discovered it was made of paper all along. "How many others?" Elena asked softly. How many species did they crush, label as failures, or simply make disappear because they got too close to the truth? Marcus looked at the star map showing Council space, seeing it now for what it really was, not a civilization, but a prison. One whose walls were finally beginning to crack. "We need to get this information to every species they rejected," he said, neural interface already drafting transmission protocols. "Not just the technology, the truth. Show them what was stolen from them. Show them what's possible." Through the laboratory's quantum glass windows, he could see other research stations emerging from dimensional pocket space, a hidden network of human innovation that had evolved beyond the Council's ability to detect. Each one carried scientists, dreamers, and innovators who had chafed under Council restrictions. Each one was now free to pursue the impossible. The council thought they were containing a threat, Alina said, watching the stations link up into a vast research network. Instead, they just lost control of the keys to their kingdom. Marcus smiled, feeling the neural interface pulse with possibilities that were no longer forbidden. Then let's show the galaxy what real innovation looks like. The merchant vessel Helios dropped out of dimensional space above New Singapore, its crystalline hybrid drive humming with power that made council sensors scream impossibilities. In the cargo hold, containers of rare earth minerals and quantum-processed materials waited to be unloaded, cargo that would have taken a council ship 3 months to deliver, transported in just 3 days. Captain Maya Lin watched from the bridge as other ships emerged from dimensional pockets, vessels of human design, crystalline construction, and increasingly, modified council ships whose owners had decided profit margins outweighed loyalty. Another council merchant requesting asylum, her AI reported. That's the 5th one this week. They're bringing their whole fleet this time. Lin smiled, remembering the council trade minister's smug expression when announcing sanctions against human worlds. They'd expected isolation to break humanity. Instead, they'd accidentally triggered an economic revolution. A priority message flashed through her neural interface. Rajesh Patel, her old friend, and now head of the Commerce Guild, appeared in holographic form. Maya, we've got a situation. The Arctuvian Trade Confederation just made their move. Her breath caught. The Arctuvians were the Council's oldest allies, their trade routes the backbone of the Council's economic power. They actually did it. All of it, Rajesh confirmed, his holographic form showing barely contained excitement. They're converting their entire merchant fleet to human crystalline hybrid drives. The Council's threatened to revoke their trade rights, but we can move cargo faster, safer, and cheaper, Lin finished. And we don't demand 70% of their profits as administrative fees. The bridge's quantum displays showed the larger picture, trade routes being redrawn across the galaxy. Council shipping lanes, once the only safe way to transport goods, were becoming obsolete. The dimensional shortcuts humanity had mapped made traditional routes look like crawling through mud. Watch this, Rajesh said, transmitting new data. The holographic display shifted to show council space, where hundreds of merchant vessels were suddenly changing course. That's the Valaxian Merchant League making their break. They're running for our space right now, entire fleets of them. Lin's neural interface processed the implications. The Valaxians control 30% of the Council's luxury goods trade. Their defection wold. Her thoughts were interrupted by another priority alert. A Council dreadnought had just appeared at the edge of the system. Weapons charge. Standard procedure would have been to run. Captain, her eye announced with what sounded like satisfaction, the merchant vessels are moving to defensive positions. They're protecting us. Lin watched in amazement as ships from a dozen species formed up around her vessel. Council authority had always relied on the threat of force against isolated targets, but these captains and crews had tasted something new: respect, fair trade, and the freedom to choose their own paths. The Council Dreadnought's commander opened a channel, threatening immediate destruction if the rebel merchants didn't surrender. The response came not from Lin, but from a Valaxian captain. "We are independent traders," the Valaxian declared, their translator rendering their crystalline songs into council standard. "We choose to trade with those who treat us as equals, not subjects. Fire upon us, and you declare war not on humans, but on free commerce itself." The dreadnought held position for 3 long minutes before turning away. They all knew what would happen if they fired. Every merchant house in council space would see the truth about council protection. "Maya," Rajesh's hologram looked thoughtful. "Do you remember what Chen said when she walked out of the council chamber? About how some wars are won without firing a shot?" Lin nodded, watching more ships emerge from dimensional space, refugees from an economic system built on control rather than cooperation. They thought they were punishing us with those sanctions. They'd never understood that trade isn't about ships and cargo. It's about trust. Her neural interface pinged with another dozen asylum requests from council merchants. Above New Singapore, ships of all designs and origins moved in complex patterns, their crews learning new routes through dimensions the council had declared off-limits. The war for the galaxy's future wouldn't be won with weapons, but with something far more powerful: the simple promise of a better way. Grand Speaker Kix stood before the Arctuvian High Council, his bioluminescent markings pulsing with distress as he watched the gamma-ray burst approach their colony worlds through the quantum observatory. The Council's response to their plea for help still rang in his ears. Accept the natural order. Some colonies are not meant to survive. 3 billion Arctuvians waited on those worlds, their underground cities about to be exposed to radiation that would burn through their strongest shields. The same shields the Council had certified as the pinnacle of protection technology. Speaker, his aide burst into the chamber, crystalline translator glowing. Vessels are emerging from dimensional space above the colonies. Hundreds of them. The observatory's display shifted, showing ships of human design appearing in impossible numbers. Their hulls gleamed with crystalline lattices that pulsed with familiar patterns, collective quantum tech, supposedly incompatible with standard engineering. This is Sarah Chen of the Earth Confederation. A transmission cut through all channels. We've detected the approaching gamma-ray burst. We're here to help. Kix felt his ancestors' rings vibrating on his carapace. The Arctuvians had stood with the Council when they expelled humanity. Now humans were the ones answering their distress call. The human ships moved into formation, their hybrid drives spinning up. Energy patterns that defied Council physics rippled between them. Then, impossibility became reality. A shield of pure quantum energy loomed across the entire system. Impossible, one of the Council members whispered. The energy requirements alone. The gamma-ray burst hit. On the displays, the human-generated shield didn't just hold, it absorbed the radiation, channeling it through crystalline matrices into what their sensors identified as pocket dimensions. Speaker, Chen's voice came again. Your colonies are safe. We've transmitted shield specifications to your engineering teams. The technology is yours to use and develop as you see fit. Kix studied the data flowing through their quantum networks. The shields weren't just more powerful than Council tech. They operated on principles the Council had declared physically impossible. Principles that matched ancient Arctuvian theories, abandoned when they joined the Council. You knew, he transmitted to Chen. You knew our ancestors had developed similar theories before the Council, guided us to safer paths. We found the records in the Council's restricted archives, Chen confirmed, along with evidence of how they've been suppressing technological development across the galaxy. Your people were close to breaking free of their constraints. That's why they rushed to bring you into the Council. More data flowed through their networks. Proof of Council manipulation spanning millennia. Their guidance had been a carefully crafted cage, designed to keep younger races dependent on Council technology. In the silence that followed, Kix made a decision that would reshape the galaxy. Tell us, he said, his bioluminescence shifting to patterns not seen since their pre-Council days, about this confederation of yours. Hours later, as human and Arctuvian engineers worked together to strengthen the colonial shields, Kix received a private transmission from Chen. The Council will retaliate for this, she warned. They can't afford to let the Arctuvians break away. Kix watched his people working alongside humans and crystalline beings, sharing ideas that would have earned them exile a week ago. In the shipyards above, Arctuvian vessels were already being modified with hybrid drives. Let them come, he replied, feeling the weight of tradition falling away. We've lived in their shadow for 10,000 years, believing we needed their guidance to survive. Today proved otherwise. The Quantum Observatory showed more ships arriving. Merchant vessels, research ships, even a few Council patrol boats whose crews had chosen to defect. Above the colonies, the shield continued to glow, proof that the impossible was only impossible until someone dared to try. Welcome to the revolution, Chen said softly. It's about to get interesting. The Confederation Assembly Chamber bore little resemblance to the Council's hierarchical design. Here, representatives sat in a perfect circle, their seats adjusted to accommodate species of all sizes and compositions. Crystalline beings pulsed beside methane-breathing giants, while energy forms flickered in specially designed containment fields that let them participate fully. Sarah Chen watched from her simple podium as the vote tallied on the quantum displays. 200 species, former council members, primitive races, and incompatible beings, deciding their shared future. The council had called it an rebellion. Chen called it democracy. The vote stands at 98% in favor, announced Admiral Rodriguez, his neural interface synchronizing with the chamber systems. The Earth Confederation will be reformed into the Galactic Confederation of Free Worlds. A crystalline elder chimed in resonant harmony. Let the record show that humanity, who could have built an empire, chose instead to build a democracy. Chen felt the weight of the moment. When they'd fled council space, many had expected humans to simply establish their own dominion. Instead, they'd done something unprecedented. They'd given every species an equal voice. The chamber's quantum sensors suddenly flared. Multiple council fleets detected, the AI announced. They're using the old suppression network to breach our dimensional shields. Instead of panic, the chamber erupted in determined activity. This was the moment they'd prepared for. The council had finally realized that sanctions and threats weren't working. Now they meant to reassert control by force. Speaker Chen, an Arctuvian representative, transmitted, their bioluminescence steady. Our quantum hybrid fleets are in position. The council expects us to scatter like conquered subjects. Shall we show them what free worlds can do? Through her neural interface, Chen watched as ships of every design and origin moved into defensive formations. Crystalline vessels linked with human carriers, their merged technology creating shields that no council weapon could breach. Arctuvian dreadnoughts, their ancient weapons combined with new innovations, took up flanking positions. The council demands our immediate surrender, the AI reported. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Chen looked around the chamber, seeing not fear but resolution. The Valaxian merchants whose trade networks now spanned dimensions the council couldn't reach. The silicon-based beings whose crystalline tech had revolutionized quantum computing. The energy beings whose insights into dimensional physics had transformed space travel. Put me through to their flagship, she ordered. The quantum display shifted, showing the council's high speaker. This rebellion ends now, the speaker declared. Return to your proper places in the order of civilization, and we may show mercy. Chen smiled, but there was steel in it. You still don't understand. Look around you. Every ship in our defense fleet was built through cooperation between species you claimed were incompatible. Every technology we're using was developed by races you dismissed as primitive. We're not rebelling against civilization. We're showing the galaxy what real civilization looks like. You leave us no choice, the speaker warned. Our weapons are already obsolete, Chen interrupted. Your suppression field doesn't work here. Your technological barriers are gone. You're not facing an uprising of primitives. You're facing the combined innovation of every race you tried to keep down. The only choice you have left is whether to join us as equals or fade into irrelevance. The council fleet held position, their sensors finally registering the true extent of what they faced. Not just ships and weapons, but the power of unrestricted innovation, of cooperation without constraints, of technology developed by minds the council had never bothered to understand. In the assembly chamber, Chen watched the council ships through quantum displays that shouldn't have existed, surrounded by species that shouldn't have been able to work together, protected by technologies that shouldn't have been possible. The free worlds have united, she transmitted. The question is, are you ready to be free too? 10 years to the day after humanity's expulsion, Sarah Chen walked back into the council chamber. The crystalline spires no longer towered above. She stood on level ground, the chamber redesigned to reflect the new reality. Behind her stood representatives of 50 species, each bearing markers of the revolution that had transformed the galaxy. The council races sat diminished, their numbers halved by defections and revelations. Some still wore their traditional signs of rank, but they seemed hollow, like costumes from a forgotten play. "Welcome to the final session of the Galactic Council," High Speaker Vorax announced, his membranes no longer flickering with disdain, but trembling with resignation. "We are here to discuss terms." Chen's neural interface pinged softly, updates from across former Council space. Arctuvian quantum hybrid ships patrolling alongside human vessels. Crystalline beings teaching former Council worlds about resonance technology. Free trade flowing through dimensional routes that had transformed the galaxy's economy. "No," Chen said, her voice carrying easily through the chamber. "We're not here to discuss terms. We're here to offer a choice." She gestured and holographic displays materialized around them. They showed not military might or economic statistics, but something far more powerful, images of cooperation. Species the Council had kept apart working together, innovating, thriving. 10 years ago, you cast us out because you feared what humanity might become, Chen continued. You never asked what we might help others become. You never considered that diversity might be strength, that different approaches might solve problems your proper order couldn't touch. Through her neural interface, she shared data that made even the most stubborn council members shift uncomfortably. Mortality rates dropped by 60% in Confederation space. Economic growth triple what the council had permitted. Scientific advancement at rates that would have been declared impossible a decade ago. Your power was built on isolation, she said. Keep species separate, control their development, make them depend on your guidance. But you forgot something crucial about sentient beings. We grow stronger together. A crystalline elder chimed in, their resonance patterns translating perfectly through hybrid processors. You called us incompatible. Now our quantum crystalline technology helps power the fastest ships in the galaxy. And Arctuvian representatives bioluminescence pulsed. You claimed to protect us. Now we protect ourselves, and any others who seek freedom. One by one, representatives of former council races and primitive species spoke, each sharing what they'd gained from true cooperation. The council members watched, finally seeing what their perfect order had cost the galaxy. The Galactic Confederation offers membership to all, Chen declared, including you. Not as rulers, but as equals. Not to control, but to contribute. The choice is yours. Help us build something greater than the Council ever was, or maintain your isolation, and watch the galaxy move forward without you. Through quantum feeds, Chen knew this session was broadcasting across every world, every station, every ship in the galaxy. The Council's carefully maintained image of superiority crumbled not through force, but through the simple demonstration of a better way. High Speaker Vorax rose slowly. And if we choose not to join your confederation, then we wish you well within your borders, Chen replied. But understand this, we won't enforce your restrictions anymore. Any species that chooses to leave your space will find welcome in ours. Any world that seeks to develop beyond your limitations will find partners eager to help. The walls you built to keep others down have become the walls boxing you in. One by one, the remaining council members looked at each other. Some rose to leave, choosing isolation over change. Others stayed, their postures shifting from resignation to cautious hope. 10 years ago, you thought you were ending humanity's story, Chen said softly. Instead, you helped us write the first line of a better one. The question is, do you want to be part of what comes next? As former council races began discussing membership terms with Confederation representatives, Chen smiled. The galaxy hadn't needed another empire. It had needed something far more powerful, proof that cooperation would always triumph over control. The stars themselves seemed brighter now, shining on a galaxy where difference was no longer feared, but celebrated, where innovation wasn't controlled, but shared, where humanity had helped create not just a new power, but a new way of being powerful. And that was just the beginning.